Hey there folks, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a part 2, I guess, to the Myers coveralls from the 1978 original. I've gotten a lot of questions about the process of what I did in that first video, and this has been quite some time, so I apologize for the wait, but I just been getting so many questions about, what dye I use and everything that I did. And to be quite frank, I kind of don't really understand why, because you can see everything that I'm doing in the video, and as far as the dyeing goes, you just follow the instructions on the bottle. But I figured I'd just go over real quick, just kind of summarize the previous video, and then I want to go back and do some weathering because some time has passed and I feel like this just isn't quite enough. So I'll do a little bit of that in this video, but make it a little bit more of a condensed version of what I did before. Just kind of go over some of the same ideas and just kind of make it a little bit more compact. As far as the first video goes, when it came to dyeing these guys, I used RIT dye. I used RIT graphite. These coveralls were initially a olive green color, and I dyed them graphite. So now they have more of a darker, less saturated kind of green. It's not quite a text green, I would say, which is kind of what a lot of people are saying the original coveralls were. But it's got a gray-green quality to it, which is what I prefer. I am not a fan of the dark blue. I'm not a big fan of blue in general, especially navy blue. So I don't like the idea of Myers wearing navy blue. But as far as the coveralls go, they are BigMacs, as you can see here. They're vintage BigMacs that I dyed graphite with RIT dye. As far as the process goes, I used 2 tubs, one of them with boiling hot water and one of them with just hose water. And I followed the directions on the bottle. You use some dish soap and some salt. You put it in there, and I think I might have used all of the bottle. It's a fairly simple process, so I'm gonna make sure that I go back under the other video, comment, that I'm posting this video. That way I can be a little bit more clear about it. But it's not really that big of a process. It's not that complicated. You just follow the instructions on the bottle, and it sounds like I'm repeating myself, which I am, but it's just because I've gotten so many questions on it. Like I said, I'm not too sure why. But for this video, I'm going to go over some of these darker areas. I'm going to try to increase the weathering. And I want to go back over with some sanding. I want to make this look a little bit more used. I said in the previous video, or the part 1, that I'm not a big fan of Myers being too grimy. But I feel like this just isn't quite enough. Especially like in this this waist area. I feel like it could be a little bit more severe, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So, first up, I think we're going to grab I think we're going to use the paint first. This is just acrylic paint, cheap, nasty brush. This is usually a brush that I use for dry brushing. I'm going to some paper towels, and we're just going to dab a little bit on here. That's probably more than we needed. And you just wipe it around. So you get sort of a dry brush, and then let me zoom in here so you guys can get a little bit of a tighter look. And we're just going to go in like this. We're just painting in the details. Soiling up the suit. Right where these creases are is where a lot of the dirt and grime would collect over time. So that's what we're going to try to focus on here. Is that sort of idea. Obviously, this is a bit of a time-consuming process, so you'd have to... I'm probably going to speed it up here at some point, but I'm going to go over some of the basic points, and then I'll kind of regroup with you guys at the end. I do want to mention, though, that I don't have the ability to really show this outside like I did before. First of all, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning right now. And second of all, it's the winter time. nothing really, it doesn't look as good as it did, you know, during the summer, the spring. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to really be able to show you guys a nice outdoors look, but I'll do the best I can with within the apartment. So let's actually jump over to some sandpaper. Tilt this down slightly. As you can see this, and the sandpaper process is just wiping it across there. The wrists, the sleeve areas, they're going to have a lot of activity. So, you know, you're going to want that to look rough. Just to give you a real world example, here's my sweatshirt, sleeves, that's natural weathering right there. If you guys got rough clothes, then you'll know what that looks like. You work in your clothes, it gets rough around the sleeves or there's a lot of activity. Seams pop, things get roughed up. So you want to do that, make it look as worn as you want, really. I'm going to go a little bit more heavy-handed than I intended to before, just because I kind of changed my preference on it a little bit. Just because I realized how hard it is to see some of these details from the distance. I went so light before that at a distance, you can't really see any of it. So I'm going to go a little bit more heavy-handed than I normally would. Because when you look at Meyer's coveralls in the first film, they don't appear to be overly weathered. But when you get some of those nicer, cleaner pictures, you can kind of see the sleeves a little bit. You can kind of see certain areas of the costume where it really does actually look pretty nasty and gnarly. It's just from a distance, they don't look that bad. That's kind of common sense, so I don't know why I didn't apply that before, but this time we're going to go a little bit more heavy-handed with it, and from a distance, it won't look so severe. So that's the idea that I'm going with. I'm going to give the sleeves a lot of activity around these corners right here. Soften those corners up, just like this. Simple, but effective. See that? Looking gnarly. Right here, the sleeves, or the buttons rather. That's a nice area to kind of go over. Kind of highlights the button, the snap. This adds a little dimension to the suit. It's an area that would catch on to certain things if you hit your arm, something like that. And you want to do that across the waist as well. Just kind of, I try to be a little bit more careful around the waist because it's a little bit more easier than you think to make it look cheesy. I have done that with other coveralls. I plan on doing a video on my H2O coveralls, and those ones I already did similar weathering, but it didn't come out quite how I wanted it to. And it's actually kind of difficult to weather the H2O coveralls because there's not a lot of good reference pics for it. So you're kind of better off just kind of going off with your own preference, because at least for myself, I can't find really good reference for it. But like I said, guys, this is all just the same process running through any sort of coveralls. Same process applies. You can, you know, do the cosplay Chris thing and get some real driveway dirt. I don't have any driveway dirt, but if I did, I would sure as heck put it on here, because it just adds to the authenticity of your cosplay. So soil this bad boy up with some paint, make it look nasty. That's another thing too, you don't have to just use black. You can use brown, you can use gray, you can mix different colors to get some different dimensions. I don't know if I'm going to go as far as to do that. I don't think it's very necessary, but those are options that you could take. Add different colors in here for different areas, you know, so that's something to keep in mind too. I guess I never really thought of it myself, but I'm going to go ahead and continue to weather these areas up, and then I'll regroup with you guys in a moment. So I thought I'd jump in here for a second, just before I kind of go overboard, and show you guys a little bit of a difference between the side that I've been working on and what the side looked like before. As you can see here, I kind of went ahead and I've started really weathering up the pockets. You slip your hands in here. There's a lot of action right here that goes on. I imagine there's a lot of collection of grease and dirt along the seams, and where different seams meet and stuff like that. A lot of gathering of fabric right here. I'd imagine that there's a lot of dirt that collects up through there in those areas. So you can see that kind of spread out. I kind of feathered a lot of it out this time around to make it look a little bit more natural. But the main idea is to follow these lines right here, get the collections of dirt. That'll really, really help. And then, you know, you can kind of feather it out, make it look a little bit more natural. One thing I would try to avoid doing if you're using BigMacs like myself is try to avoid hitting this button with sandpaper. The only reason I say that is because the original film, it was just a square or a rectangular patch that went over the top here. So there was no snap. It wasn't really a lip. It was more like connected on the side, and you just slip your hand in there. So there shouldn't have been a button. So if you hit that with sandpaper, that's going to highlight the button. In other areas, it works really well, like the sleeves and stuff like that. But right here, it's not really accurate, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. Don't make the same mistake I did. But you can see right here where the pockets are a little bit more pristine, and everything's just a little bit more pristine. It's a little bit too subtle. You can't really get the effect from a distance. You can see this side's a little bit more intense. Kind of see that right there. It's a little bit hard to tell with the lighting that I got going on here because this fabric is pretty reflective, but I hope it comes across a little bit. You can see here, and just because I wasn't really doing it too hard before, you can see that this really does make a difference when you push down kind of hard. It's kind of hard to do it while I'm holding it, or while I'm holding the camera. But, you know, with certain areas, I wouldn't give it too much pressure, but in some areas, give it a little bit of hell, and it really starts to bring it to life. You know, you don't want to get over fraying like this, but in some of these areas where you imagine there's a lot of traffic, just kind of push down hard and give it the business, and it really bring it to life. One of those areas that I recommend doing that is the collar, because it appears that the original collar had a lot of wear and tear. I'll throw a picture up for that so you guys can see, but there's a nice close-up image where you can see the collar, and it actually does look pretty dingy and messed up. I wouldn't imagine that there's too much roughness on the collar. If you're a mechanic, I would imagine you don't really touch that often, so it's kind of surprising to see so much wear and tear there, but that is a key spot. Like I said, I'll throw an image up, but I figured I'd just show you guys a little bit of a before and after, I suppose, of me going back and doing this again. And once it's all complete, we'll do another shot. So stay tuned. All right, folks, this is where I'm at right now. I'm not quite ready to say that this is completed, but I think for the sake of the video, it's a lot closer to what I want than what it previously was. You can see the weathering on the pockets and the waistband area is a lot more drastic. The scuffing and just kind of overall appearance is a lot more weathered and used looking. Again, this is pretty much just sandpaper and black paint. There's a lot of different things you can do to this. You can add browns, you can add grays in there to get different values. Different techniques for sanding. You can use, you know, files, because they got more of a, you know, it's a solid base. You can use files or a sanding sponge, different grits of sandpaper, stuff like that. You can go really hard in some areas, lighter in some areas. I also recommend kind of placing things in random areas underneath the coveralls while you're working with them, because you can pick up certain highlights. Like, for an example, I left the hanger underneath the suit while I was sanding it, so there's certain areas where you can kind of see sanding lines where I went over the hanger. It just picks up more severe, you know, kind of scuffs in certain areas. You can see that a lot more on the back here. If I can get this to hang up properly. There we go. You can kind of see it all on the back, and there's a lot more severe scuffing around the bottom area. Probably could use a little bit more in the back, and like, this isn't something that I really care for, so I want to add to this. I haven't really hit the back with any paint yet. I just wanted to get this part recorded, that way I can kind of throw this video up. You can see down here it's looking a little bit more severe. Again, the wrists looking a lot more weathered and dirty, kind of the holes and stuff. So I'm definitely pretty happy with how this is looking. It's not done yet. I think it's a process that kind of, you know, you can kind of always go back to get, like, you know, there's areas like the elbows and the knees that should have a lot of natural kind of greasing, because, you know, you're either kneeling on something, or your elbows or your back are touching something. If you're working on a car or whatever, you're going to get dirty and you're going to get grease over everything. So I think it's just something that's going to take a lot of time and patience to get it to look as natural as possible. These are coveralls that I plan on using for multiple short films, or horror films, or fan films, or whatever you want to call them. So, you know, I want them to be as authentic as possible. Like right here, that just doesn't cut it in terms of the greasing. So this is definitely a process that I'm going to keep working on. But like I said, for the sake of this video, I think this is a good stopping point. And, you know, we might do another one down the line. I plan on doing a video on my H2O coveralls, as well as a video on weathering my bust. I already did some weathering to it, but just to kind of give it another video that's out there available, giving a similar process to this, but with the bust elements included to it. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you liked the video, hit subscribe, the notification bell, all that good stuff, whatever. It would be greatly appreciated. And of course, until next time, true believers.